What's up, guys? It says we're live, so we must be live. It's 9 p.m. Eastern, a little bit early. Normally, we're starting around closer to 10. You guys know that. If you haven't noticed, I'm in the middle of a card show. I told everybody to be kind of quiet back there. You might see Dustin and Brad back there. Actually, I got a green screen, so you're going to see all kinds of static around my hands and stuff, which I don't care. I'm still working. It's a work in progress, but it's a work nonetheless. And tonight, guys, I'm going to bring on someone from the comic book community. You'll see in a moment. We got Titan Comic Pressing coming in. His name's Patrick. We're going to have questions. You guys know how we do the Q&A all night. I will still also have the sports card Q&A probably after being about an hour in. And I hope you guys brought some good questions and some comments. I hope you guys want to know what's going on in the comic book. What's up, Tal? What's up, Bradley? I love podcasts in the house. I love podcasts too. Miami Mike. Guys starting to show up. Let's fill up this room. Let's get some questions from my man. I'm about to bring him on. What's up, Michael? Michael Merlin Peck in the house. Jason Valentine. I know we got a couple streams going on, so maybe we got some other people watching another channel, which is cool. Business 124. All right, guys. I hope you guys are ready for some comic book talk for about 45 minutes to an hour. I will be taking your Q&A for sports cards, so don't worry about that. And I'm going to go ahead and bring on Patrick, Titan Comic Pressing, and we're going to talk about some comic books.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Doing all right. Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Yeah, no problem. I don't have guests on that much, so I've had one before, so you're my second, and we're going to talk about some comics for a little while as I've been getting into the comic world. Sure, people have lots of questions because lots of people like the comics and may just not know enough about them to get their feet wet on it yet. But
sure. Yeah, always happy to have new people introduced to the hobby and be able to help them out or persuade others to get into it.
Yeah, and that's good. Sometimes, so you have a few out there like, oh, the sports card investors are ruining it for the comic book or driving the market up. But I believe that it's the collectibles altogether. I think that it's just the market's just blowing up because it's been overlooked for too long. And so let's go ahead. Let's touch on your background a little bit. Like, how long have you been into comics? What are some of your favorites? What do you do? Just go ahead and tell me.
Sure. Yeah. I've been into comics since probably the early 90s. I started collecting comics with a friend. I got out of it for a little bit and then got back in probably in the early 2000s. Got back into it actually through toys. I started getting into some toy collecting at one point, and I saw some toys advertised that were about a new comic that was coming out, and it sounded interesting, so that kind of got me back in. And then toys got left behind, and it's been comics ever since. I've been collecting for a long time, and then in the last 2-3 years, I started doing comic pressing and cleaning, and started my own business with that. So, yeah, pretty deep in.
Well, that's awesome. Since you mentioned the cleaning and pressing for comics, so in sports cards, everybody has, we have grading companies, multiple new ones on the scenes every day. They grade different criteria. However, in the sports cards, you cannot, anything that you do to a card is considered altered, whether you trim it, you can wipe the fingerprints off the surface, but if you use any kind of surface cleaner and a grading company detects it, they'll automatically disqualify your card. So cleaning and pressing, let's talk about the criteria for grading and, cleaning and pressing, what that can potentially do for your grades and actually what the, not the whole process, but kind of, what it is.
Sure. So I know that I think cards are a little bit easier to understand where the grading comes from, right? Because they have that 4-point scale, the corners, the edges, the surface, and then what am I missing? Centering. I know a little bit about cards. So it makes it real easy to, this is what they're going to be looking at. With comics, there's so much more there, right? It's a bunch of pages, so you have to worry about the exterior, the interior, the staples. There's just more material there for things to go wrong. So they don't really have this sort of checklist of this, the covers at this, the things at this is at this, and they average them out or whatever. It's more of an all-encompassing sort of thing. It makes it real hard for just the normal person to grade. What it really takes is just time. You know,
Right.
you see a lot of grades of a 7.0 or a 6.0 or something, and you just kind of get it by feel, like, oh, I've seen other books that look like this that were a 6.0 or whatever. You learn some rules of thumb and whatnot, but it's hard to have a checklist just because there's so many things that they look at.
Now, do they grade certain era of books under different criteria, whether it be a Silver Age or a Bronze Age, as opposed to a modern book? Do they grade those all with the same? Okay, I'm going to be just as hard on this 1970s book as I am on this 2020 book, or there's a little bit more leniency, or it doesn't really matter because those older books hold more value with lower grades.
So they look at the same stuff, right? Like a tear in the cover is a tear in the cover. I don't care what year it's from. But yeah, with the older books, because they were made to be stuffed in pockets and read and thrown around, they're a lot more lenient. There are some things that they allow in older books that they don't allow on newer books. So for example, if you have a Silver Age book, say something from the early 1960s, and there's some tape on the cover because some kid, months after reading it 50 times, ripped it and put some tape on it. It just happened, right? It's just part of the deal. So that won't really get judged as any sort of like restoration or fixing or anything like that. It's kind of grandfathered in. But if you saw that on a modern book, they'd be like, it looks like you tried to make it better, and they might label it as a restored grade.
So I have a question here from I Love Podcasts, and this is a question for myself too, because I often hear spine ticks talked about when I'm buying raw cards or raw comics on auctions and stuff. Is spine ticks one of the main factors? Is that like one of the first things that people look at? And also, I do hear the term color breaking. Real quickly, what is the difference between like a color breaking and a non-color breaking?
So for more modern books, looking at the spine and looking for those spine ticks is sort of the go-to thing, because that's the thing that happens easiest. Like that can just happen in shipping, you know, and nothing you can do about it, and normal handling. The difference between a color breaking tick and a non-color breaking tick is if the fold is so hard that it breaks the ink, right? Because there's paper and there's ink on it, and if you take something and fold it, you'll see the paper underneath it because the ink has broken.
Right.
There's nothing that can be done about that, right? But if you have a non-color breaking crease or a tick where you can just kind of see that it's bent a little bit, but it doesn't break that color, things like that can potentially get pressed out like they weren't ever there.
Okay.
As far as the difference between a 9.6 and a 9.8, honestly, it can be between your grader having a good day and a bad day. Spine ticks is a lot of it. But when you get to that higher level of grading, when you go to any of the grading companies, sometimes you'll get notes. Right? Like, this is why we graded what we graded it. Once you get to the 9.4 or 9.6 range, they don't tell you. They don't say exactly what bumped it down from a 9.8 to a 9.6. I've seen 9.8s with very, very small color breaks. I've seen 9.6s with no color breaks. They have their set of rules, but when it comes down to it, it's a human being that's sitting there doing it, and it's a little bit of subjectivity.
Yeah, gotta love third-party grading. It's like just like that with cards. You could send grader could be having a bad day, just like you said with the comic book. I mean, one common practice is to crack and resubmit in cards. It's probably something that's done in comics as well, because similar markets, and because you could get somebody else that looks at the book a little bit differently than somebody else.
Exactly.
Whenever you have a human judgment involved, they have set criteria and stuff, but somebody could be a little more harsh than somebody else, or whatever the case may be.
Exactly. So yeah, same thing. In comics, a lot more of that cracking and resubmitting is done when you can look at a book and you can tell like it hasn't been pressed. So it's not just the like, I'm going to roll the dice again. It's I'm going to crack it and actually try to make it better, and then resubmit it for a better chance at a higher grade.
All right. Okay. So let's let's talk about that. Let's talk about the pressing and cleaning and
Sure.
what it does, how it can help a book out and things like that, because that's something that doesn't exist in the card world. So this is something that's completely new. When I heard about this, and I've just been back in since March, I not to make a joke, but I thought sounded like something you do in the weight room, clean and press. But I was like, do they really, I was thinking to myself, do they really like press a book with like heat? I mean,
yep.
To me, it just seemed like something that was, I don't know, like really out there, but it actually something that's happened. So tell us about that and how it can affect your books.
Sure. And I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that you couldn't really do anything to cards without them flagging it. That's interesting. Now, there's certain things you can't do to books, to comic books, right? There's the concept of you're cleaning and pressing, and there's the concept of restoration. Right.
Okay.
So if you have a book that does have some white where it's been broken and someone tries to touch the color up or does like edge trimming or something like that, that's considered restoration. And it comes back with a completely different label to let the person know, like, this work has been done on this to try to make it look better aside from a normal clean and press.
Yeah.
But I view comic clean and pressing like you would clean your car, right? If you had a really nice car and it just got dirty, if you clean it off, like, you haven't harmed the car. You've taken the debris that age and time has taken off of it. It's still the same car. Mm-hmm. You're only taking things away from it. You're not adding things to it. So there's a lot of things you can do. If you look at books that have like a lot of white on it, sometimes you'll see like just some general like black, brownish dirt sort of stuff. Like, that stuff can come out. For pressing, especially with these modern books, like off the shelf, Marvel in particular, because they have really poor quality paper, you'll see like there's this natural kind of waviness in it. And that sort of stuff can be pressed out, or other just sort of creases or crinkles to make them nice and flat. And that's one of the biggest factors in grading, is the cleanliness of it and how flat does it sit? Does it have any creases?
Okay. And how often does something like a clean and press? Well, I guess it would depend on the condition of the book, but how often do you see potential grade bumps between a raw book or a clean and pressed book?
Excuse me. It really depends on the book. Mm-hmm. Now there is the concept of what's called the safety press, right? So if you have a book and it looks just immaculate, the best thing to do is go ahead and press it anyway. Just in case, because you never know. But when you get to the older books in particular, because they were handled a little bit rougher, there's usually a lot more room for improvement with those.
Yeah, I tend to see that a lot because really I'm buying the older comic books right now, because I don't know enough. I don't have enough knowledge about the modern stuff, because there's a lot of variants and stuff, things like that. Real quick, before we start talking about actual books, let's talk about the grading companies, because I can go on and on. PSA, BGS, SGC, HGA, smaller companies like GMA, CSG, who is the CGC comic book now, is into cards as well. Just a bunch coming along. Another YouTube buddy of mine created one. I think it's the Grading X, but that's Carson Cruz's. But it's like grading companies just coming along. I know in comic books you have CGC, which I would say that's the PSA of comics when it comes to market value.
CGC has been in the game the longest, so they sort of have the longest running reputation.
And then you have, I'm not even familiar, is it CBCS or?
Yep, CBCS is the real up and comer. It was actually started by someone who started CGC. He split off from CGC to start CBCS. So you'll see their grades are usually very, very comparable because they came from the same roots.
All right, so they do have a reputable, person like kind of starting the company, but they're upstart. They haven't been around for a while, and they're just getting popular.
They've been around for quite a bit. And they're in my opinion, they're really gaining ground.
Mhm.
And this is getting into personal opinion. I think CBCS has a much better product than CGC. I think they're a lot better. And again, I don't know how it is in the card world with the differences between these grading companies, but CGC has been on top for so long that it's just kind of the go-to. I feel they've been slipping. Their QA has been bad. I've seen some nasty stuff. I saw someone get back a book that had a bug in it. Like it got encapsulated with a bug inside of it, and all kinds of other really bad stuff. But I feel CVCS is gaining ground, especially with the boom we're seeing in comics, like you're seeing in cards today.
Right. Like, okay, so PSA has been top for a long time in the cards. SGC was a smaller company. It's been around for a long time. Actually, they've been around second longest. They've been around longer than BGS. They were really gaining some ground last year, but then they got backed up on business. They weren't able to deliver on their turnaround times. And even though there was a lot of people who really respected their grades, think that their grades are tougher than PSA, sometimes that kind of keeps people sending to PSA just because it's a reputable company that might give you an easy grade.
Yeah.
But people who, there's a cliche used in the card collecting world, buy the card, not the grade. Is there ever like a buy the comic, not the grade type thing, or anything along those lines?
I think it's probably a little bit more complicated in that case. It could be a little bit of both, right? Because like I said before, you could buy something with a certain grade that's like maybe an 8.0, but with a comic, if you look at a slabbed comic and see that it could be improved, you can crack it and make it better and send it in. So It's a little bit of both, right? So you can see like, this is at least an 8.0, so I am looking at the grade. But I also want to look at the book inside of it because it might have potential to be better.
Okay. And CBCS, is there a lot of people out there that actually like personally prefer those and maybe be, over CGC, for any particular reason, or because there is, PSA drives the market, but you do have your handful of people that prefer the other grading companies and will go with the other grading companies. Not just because you may get your cards back quicker or it may be cheaper, but that's because that's who they legitimately like. Are you finding that, you say that CBCS is getting some steam, so you're finding like a lot of, or quite a few people in the industry?
Yeah. I personally, if all my books back here, these are all CBCS because except for one, because I bought it at CGC, that Moon Knight CGC, because it came that way. All the others I sent in myself. All my personal books I send to CBCS. I prefer it better. I think their slabbing is better. The actual slab, the product overall is better. They have better communication, better turnaround times, better prices. Fox Crown, I would agree, because you mentioned how one of the card grading companies is a little bit stricter.
Yeah.
I would agree that CBCS. I don't know if you want to say stricter, but I think they're more accurate.
Accurate.
And some may mean a lower grade, but if you're a collector, I think you want the more accurate thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean by like the integrity. Some people prefer certain grading companies over the integrity of the grade, or because of the integrity of the grade is over the market value of the company. Yeah. Because they know what they're getting.
Right. The grade is meant to be an indicator of, like you said, what's inside, right? Like I've had a comic that was slabbed poorly. It was graded at a 9.8, and it was like an X-Men 1, not like 1960s X-Men 1, but 1990s X-Men 1. And the one of the corners was dog-eared down. It was bent down, and someone tried to sell it off as a 9.8. Like, no, like the label says 9.8, but the book in there is not a 9.8.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that happens. Yeah, sometimes people, especially when they're buying older stuff, will look at, the card, especially if it's from the same company. I may look at two different PSA cards or two different BGS cards, and if one of them looks better than the other one, I'm going to, bid on or buy the one that actually looks better. I'm not going to just go buy, even if they both have the same grade. Yeah, I'm actually going to look at the card in there.
Well, and people have different preferences, right? So, like, for example, back in the 60s, a lot of books got timestamps stamped on them just because the grocery stores or drugstores or whatever, they stamp the time on it to let them know when to take it off the shelf. That doesn't count against grade for Silver Age. I don't like timestamps. Even though that doesn't affect the grade, to me, I don't like it. Some people do. So I would take a 5.0 without a timestamp over a 6.0 with a timestamp.
Okay. Here's a question from I Love Podcasts. Is there a big difference between 9.8 with off-white versus 9.8 with white? Or is that similar to, is an off-white similar to having a 9.6? So see, real quick to touch on with cards, cards have qualifiers. Now, I don't know if the page color is necessarily a qualifier.
It is.
So that's considered a qualifier. Okay. In the cards, if something is graded like a 9 with a qualifier, it's considered a 7. It's usually at least a 2 grade bump down if it has a qualifier. How would you relate a qualifier on a comic book? And it would probably also depend on the age, because I'm going to guess that a lot of your Silver Age stuff, you're going to see books more so with off-white to white pages than you are white pages.
Right. Well, maybe I don't completely understand the concept of a qualifier in cards, but I will say that the page quality definitely does impact grade. So if the question is between a 9.8 off-white with a 9.8 white pages, I don't know if you can get a 9.8 with off-white pages, because in order to get a 9.8, it has to have white pages.
Okay, yeah, and like with cards, in order to get a 10, it can't have a qualifier. But so say, for instance, there's a card, you get a card graded with like a 9, the PSA will put in parentheses OC, which means off-center. So if that card was a centered card, it'd be a 9. However, if you're going to take centering into account and remove the qualifier, it's kind of like graded a 7, not a 9.
Okay.
Yeah, you can choose that option when you send your cards in to have a qualifier, because a lot of times it applies to cards that are notorious for having this defect, whether it be a stain or a print line or off-centering, because all the sheets were cut the same back in the 80s, where the same card was always on the end getting hammered.
Right.
So a lot of times they'll throw that qualifier on there in order to get a bigger overall grade. However, if you were to remove the qualifier, you're getting the true grade. So PSA says this card is a 7, but if it was centered, it'd be a 9. So we'll put a 9 OC on it, saying that this only got a 9 because we're not taking the centering into account.
Gotcha. Yeah, there are similar in comics. There might be some books that are known for a certain print defect, and usually print defects won't detract from grade. It's because it's one of those things, like that is its best possible state because it was printed that way.
Okay. What would fall like under a qualifier? Like what is, I don't know. Like I'm not familiar enough with the grading of comic books that, like, when I look in a Census report, you will see the grades, and then you will see like books with qualifiers. Like sometimes what pushes a grade, into qualify.
Sure. So there's different labels that you can get. So the normal standard label is just called the blue label, because it's a blue label. That means it is what it is. One qualifier, I suppose, could be if it has been restored, which in CGC world means it's a green label. They just put a restored label on it, a purple label. Sorry, it's purple. And then there's a qualified grade, which is the green label, which can have any number of different things. So, for example, if you take a book and a raw book and have someone sign it, and no one's there to witness it, and you give that to CGC, they will grade it ignoring the signature as if it weren't there, and then give it a qualified grade saying, well, this book is a 9.8, ignoring the signature, but there's some writing on the cover. Okay. I don't know who it is, but that's probably one of the biggest qualifiers. Now CBCS is great because CBCS is owned by Beckett. They have signature verification, so you can send in a book that they didn't witness, and they will verify the signature and give it that coveted gold label, which means this is a signed book and it's been verified that this is the signer.
Okay, and that's what I was going to ask. And actually, I didn't know CBCS was owned by Beckett. I mean, I would think that would be, a good. I would think that would be something pretty good. I mean, that's a big reputable company, at least in the card world. And they wrote price guides for cards forever. They're not the top in the card world, but still, it's I didn't know CBCS was Beckett. But yeah, I was going to ask if CGC did authentication, but I guess you already answered that question. I guess they don't, or can you request it, or
they'll do they'll have events. They'll do witnessed authentication where they themselves will bring in an artist and you can send books to them to have them signed. And so the artist will sign it and then they have someone witnessing it and then they'll slab it. If you go to conventions, if there's an artist out there, you can get CGC to come follow you, like for a fee, of course, to come follow you and say, hey, watch him sign this. Okay. So now it's verified. So when I get it slabbed, it's proved. But they won't take a book that they haven't witnessed and verify the signature in any way. Only CBCS does that.
All right. So E-Man, my man Tony, he's been following the channel for a long time. He says he's seen a few CGC 9.9s. How rare are 10s? I'm going to say I'm going to just relate a 9.8 to being a 10 in the card world. So these would be basically very high premium, very hard to find, locate type books.
That's a good point. When you send something in, 9.8 is what you realistically hope for. Realistically the best you can get. 9.9s are rare. 10, because I've seen plenty of 10s in the card world. They're out there. I've only in person and I've held 199. I've never seen a 10 in person. There are certain types of books that are better at getting 9.9s and 10s. Things that with a harder stock cover. Like if you've been reading like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Last Ronin is out. It has a harder stock cover, which means it doesn't flex and bend as much. The corners stay sharp because it's like actual cardboard. Those come back 9.9s and some 10s with more regularity, but a normal comic. Yeah. And the price difference between a 9.8 and a 9.9 is astronomical because it's just that rare.
Right. Well, like in the card world, PSA, they have their Gem Mint 10. That's their top of the line. That's the grade that they give out a lot of. Other grading companies tend to call their Gem Mint a 9.5, like BGS, CSG, HGA. A lot of grading companies using the 0.5 scale where they give you subgrades as well. And that's their Gem Mint. So in order to get a 10 from one of those companies, it's actually a step up to a pristine. So there's usually a premium on a card like that also, because you just don't see them that much. So I guess it's kind of along the same lines, with the comic book, where if something was to push up to a grade like that, 9.8 still sets the bar. Right. Those just are kind of books that don't devalue at 9.8. They just hold absolute premiums for themselves, I would guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said, you never expect to get anything above a 9.8 realistically when you send stuff in. And I like that 9.8 is sort of the expected, because there might be it might be something out there that does actually look a little bit better. You need to have that wiggle room to say like, yeah, this is a near pristine copy, but there is one that's actually a little bit better. You have to give that room.
Yeah, Green Lantern 2814 says that's another plus about CBCS is the authentication.
Oh, hey, that's my buddy. That's my buddy Sam. Thanks for stopping by, Sam.
Give me the loot says talking comics. Take care. Give me the loot. I'll be doing my card question and answer in about 30 minutes. So if you want to come back and check out, the regular Monday night, I'll be doing that in a little bit. Let's see. Mal. Let's see if this is a serious comment. Do you guys hate Doomsday Clock and the MCU? Because my friend Alexander has a YouTube group dedicated to MCU hate and
retconning.
So I'm guessing a channel that doesn't like the MCU.
Doomsday Clock. Doomsday Clock was interesting. Here's the thing with Doomsday Clock. I'm gonna get nerdy here. So the DC universe in comics has a habit of resetting their universe fairly often, whereas the MCU or I shouldn't say MCU, the Marvel comics just kind of lets it fly and lets it sort itself out. So like originally, like the Punisher was in Vietnam. Like, well, he can't really have been in Vietnam anymore because then he'd be like 80 years old. Right. So it's kind of like, nah, he was actually in Desert Storm. They just kind of have a sliding time scale. Okay. Whereas like But then there's characters like Captain America who are easy because he was frozen, right? He was always in World War II. He can be at any age because they just changed when he was thawed out. But the DC universe, for some reason, they feel the need whenever they need to adjust the scale, they have to have some huge event which wipes out history and restarts it from the beginning. And Doomsday Clock is just another one of those on top of a stack of them. So don't really care.
All right, I love podcast. Is there a premium on artist signed CGC comics besides Stan Lee? I'm going to guess Todd McFarlane is probably highly sought after. Maybe somebody like Jim Lee. What are some other artists, especially like modern artists? I don't know any modern or newer artists. I still know Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, those guys. Sam Keith back in the 90s was a guy that I liked, but I don't even know if he gained much more popularity.
Not really. Sam Keith did the Max, is that right?
I remember Eric Larson.
Yeah. I mean, Stan Lee, your big ones are going to be your Stan Lee and your Jack Kirby's. John Romita Sr., because they were the ones that really set the groundwork for a lot of stuff. Stan Lee and Kirby in particular. Stan Lee at Marvel and Kirby at both Marvel and DC were very influential in creating characters and designs and things like that. McFarlane is great, but he was during that huge boom during that dark age. There's a lot of McFarlane signatures out there, right? And they're just kind of everywhere. As far as modern, it just kind of depends who's hot at the moment. So there's an artist, Clayton Crane, who did a really big series of variant covers that people just went crazy for. And they were beautiful.
Did he do some Venom books? For some reason, that's like sticking in my mind.
Yeah, he did a lot of Venom variant covers, a lot of Spidey related Venom covers. So if a modern cover artist gets hot, then their signature on one of their books will spike quite a bit.
Now, when it comes to signatures, is maybe having a certain artist signature on a certain book or a different book, or maybe a book that isn't signed as much. I'm sure McFarlane has signed tons of Spawn stuff and probably tons of Spider-Man stuff. But what if it was something that you don't see maybe signed? Would that just kind of add more value to the book itself or more value to the signature, maybe being on something that he hasn't signed as opposed to something that he signed a lot of?
I'm not sure how it works in the card or general sports collectible community, but I think that people want things signed that they are known for. So McFarlane got his real big start on Spawn. People want Spawns. He had a really important run on Spider-Man, so they want McFarlane's name on the Spider-Man books that he did. It's not so much as they rarely sign this sort of thing, so that has more demand. It's probably, if anything, the opposite.
All right. Now, if McFarlane was to sign like a big, amazing Spider-Man type book, like a 300 or something, I know the market is driven by the individual and what they like, but generally speaking, does that add or maybe lessen the value of a book with a signature on it, even if it's all, if it's authenticated and everything? Does it usually add value? Does it kind of like keep it the same, or can
it adds? It adds.
It does add. Okay.
Yeah.
In the card world, people don't necessarily. There are sports memorabilia collectors. However, if you were to just take a sports card to a sports show and have somebody sign it and have a COA, someone signing it, normally it doesn't add a lot of value to that card itself or make it collectible. People tend to chase the autograph cards that are pulled out of packs and made by the manufacturers. With the jersey cards, my dogs are about to go nuts. Someone's at the door, but in the card world, the market is more so around the pack pulled autos, the pack pulled memorabilia items, as opposed to just something that's acquired at a game or acquired at a show or something like that. Where in comic books, it does. I guess, do they ever release comic books that are pre-signed or anything like that, or is it just you get them signed and that's
not under normal circumstances? There are some companies that. So there's a company called Dynamic Forces where a lot of their stuff, they kind of have like a premium product of maybe a new book is coming out and they'll have a set of them set aside and get them signed and release it as a Dynamic Forces product with like sort of publish it themselves, but also get it signed with a COA. But generally speaking, just like your normal New Comic Book Day on the shelf, you're not going to see any signed stuff.
All right, we have a little bit of a hate comment coming in here. Stan Lee is an awful person, and he sucks, and Marvel sucks. Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld and Image Comics roll. But, okay, it kind of goes hand in hand, because if there was never a Stan Lee or a Marvel Comics, Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld might have never got their starts.
That is accurate.
So it's like, you know, it goes hand in hand with each other. So, you know.
Yeah,
I don't know where that comes from. I guess
there's a lot of people, and it's not just in comics. It's not just Stan Lee. There's a bunch of people in any kind of entertainment or art or whatever that aren't necessarily the best people. So do you separate the art from the artist? And that's kind of a personal decision. And I can see it going both ways.
All right, Dave from Ohio says, is there a book considered to be an 86 Fleer Jordan? So that is probably considered to be the most important basketball card. Now, maybe sports card in general. It depends on how far back you want to go. Yeah, but what are some of the GOAT books or Grail books or however you want to refer to them in comics? I know a couple, but I'll let you go with, you know, what would be, and a lot of this is probably opinionated, but let's talk from maybe a value standpoint, because, you know, I'm sure a lot of people are referring to the 86 Jordan because of its value. I mean, it does have real significance. There's no arguing that, but maybe give the top 5 in value, and then a top 5 that you think are arguably the most important, even if the value, you know, doesn't necessarily reflect its importance.
Sure. Oh man, put me on the spot.
That's okay.
So again, you mentioned, you know, there's bigger cards out there than a rookie Jordan, right? You can go back to, you know, you get your rookie Mickey Mantle or whatever. So it kind of depends on year, right? So if you're looking of all time, it's Action Comics #1. It's the first appearance of Superman. It's the comic that he's the first superhero, right? And there's all kinds of comics out there. There's superhero, there's non-superhero, but superhero is where a lot of the focus is. So I mean, that's the Grail of Grails, is your Action Comics one, and then, you know, Detective Comics 27, your first Batman. But then you're getting back into the 30s and 40s and the golden age of comics, and that's there's not a lot of those around, and the ones that are around they're not obtainable realistically. We're talking millions of dollars.
Well, maybe some of your more obtainable types, like maybe like a Hawk 181 or
sure. Well, it depends upon your definition of attainable, right?
I guess your budget.
If you're moving into the Silver Age, so what Marvel refers to as starting the Marvel Age of Comics, you have your Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, which came out in 61. And then you can get more modern, like you said, your Hulk 181 with your first appearance of Wolverine is obviously a big one, will continue to be a big one. X-Men 1 back in 62, 63. Pretty much anyone that has like a movie franchise, their first appearance is going to be one of those Grails.
So if you're super significant in the MCU or in DC or whatever comic you're in, it's going to be your first appearance. That's the rookie card of comic books, pretty much. Even though someone may later get their own series as a #1, collectors tend to flock towards the first appearance as opposed to a #1 comic book.
That's more important usually. And a lot of times those are hand in hand, right? The #1 is the first time that character
is the origin, and
but not necessarily, especially when you get to the older characters. It was very rare for a brand new character just to get their new book out of the gate, because they had these like tryout books, right? Like Spider-Man appeared in Amazing Fantasy #15 because Amazing Fantasy was an ongoing title, and they'd throw characters and see kind of what stuck, and some characters stuck, and then they got their own ongoing series.
So like you would have like, was it Tales to Astonish where Thor had his first appearance?
Journey into Mystery.
And then you would have like Iron Man's first appearance, and they're all in what?
Suspense 39.
They all just fall under a title of a book, and they were just actually kind of like trial characters at the time going into the title of that book.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes they give him Iron Man was in Tales of Suspense for a long time before he got his own book. Like Tales of Suspense became Iron Man's book for a while. And eventually he got his own #1. So that was Pretty
Like the
common.
Doctor Strange book I had earlier, that was originally Strange Tales,
Right.
and then kind of just switched over to Doctor Strange title.
Yeah, they do that. They did the same thing with Tales to Astonish and Hulk. Tales to Astonish was a sort of a double book where it was Ant-Man and Hulk. There were 2 stories, and it turns to Hulk and Submariner, and then eventually it just turned into the Incredible Hulk. So Incredible Hulk number 102 was it's a new title, but they kept the old numbering.
Okay. All right, I got a question from Business 124. Is there $1 million comic book? So I'm going to guess that this has to be graded, but has there been like any recorded sales of $1 million?
Yeah, your Action Comics 1 has gone for millions of dollars.
Okay, so that's your first appearance of
Superman
there.
Yeah.
Now, what type of grade?
That I don't remember the specifics of it. It was for that book to reach that mark, especially in today's market. I don't think it has to be that high of a grade. And honestly, there's not many high grade stuff that's that old. It doesn't stood the test of time.
Yeah, who would have known? Yeah, and it's printed on the paper and things like that. It's just biodegradable
and cards have the same thing, but they have a little bit of benefit is that they're on cardboard. It's a little more sustainable material.
Yeah, and it's a little bit easier to care for a card. They're smaller than it is a comic book and everything like we talked about the grading earlier, everything that a comic book entails.
Yeah, like the staples, the covers come off, the centerfolds come out,
So Triggerfinger, every week he gives me crap about Lando Calrissian. We talk about Star Wars. He says Lando was the worst character and he's a traitor. So what do we have tonight? Would love to get a Lando comic book just to press it 1,000 times. So he knew what Han Solo felt like. Green Lantern talks about the New Mutants 98 first Deadpool. And so this is a good segue here because this is a really popular, really hot book, kind of from that era of when there was a lot of printing going on. But let's talk about Census reports because this is a book that even though, there might be like between the card world and between the comic book world, I think there's a differentiation as opposed to what is considered to be a high population or a high census. Maybe not with everyone, but in general, I've seen where, like this book might have in a 9.8 might have a 4,000 census, and it might sound like a lot to some people in the comic book market, but to someone in the sports card market, for something that popular, or that's at least as popular as it is right now, 4,000 isn't a lot. So that's kind of a difference in how I know that some comic book collectors and sports card collectors have viewed pop reports / census reports. Card people, for you guys who don't know, the census report is the same as a pop report, only that's what CGC reports for their grade. So a pop report and a census report, pretty much the same thing. And, people, I've heard, you're I can't believe that book's $3,000. There's 4,000 in the census report. But again, to someone coming over from the card world, if something's is really that popular, 4,000 just doesn't seem like a lot, because we see cards of popular players, modern, that are pushing 20,000 in the pop report, and they still have liquidity. So, thoughts on that?
I don't think that the census is quite as important in the comic community as it is in the card community. You don't hear a lot of talk about it. Except when you get into older books in very, very high grades, which are very rare and usually out of the grasp of most people. With modern books, especially very, very modern books in the last handful of years, it's like 9.8's the target for a lot of those. It doesn't matter how many there are. It's obtainable, so that's what people want. It doesn't matter how many there are out there. It's just what's desired.
Yeah, so I guess you would see like grading ratios as opposed to older books where you see this many have been submitted for grading and only this percentile of them are grading out at a high grade, as opposed to the modern. You probably see more 9.8s than you do lower grades. Sure. that could just be because people are smarter to what they're sending in. They're only going to send in a book that they think is going to 9.8, as opposed to with an older book, you're just going to send it in because you want it slabbed.
Right. Well, and it depends upon value, right? So if I have a really old book, and I think it's only a 4, getting it slabbed and graded a 4 still increases its value, so it's worth it. If I have a modern book and I think it's going to be a 4 because it's been trashed, grading it's going to decrease its value. It's not, you're not going to be able to do anything with it. So you're right. In the more modern books, people don't send stuff in unless they think it's going to reach a grade, which is going to make the time, the money, the effort worth it. And for modern books, it's a very high bar. If you're not going to get like a 9.6, 9.8, then just don't bother. So that's the most of what you see.
It's like that with modern cards. If you send in a card and it doesn't 10, you might make a little bit of money off of 9. And if you get an 8, you're taking a loss. So, okay. Let's see. I'm going to pull these both at the same time. Character speculation, Billy Morales. I'm not sure who that is. Maybe you do. And also Trigger Finger has any sleeper comic book plays. So I guess we can address the Billy Morales long-term and key issues as maybe that's a sleeper. I'm not sure. And then any other sleepers that you're looking at.
Yeah. Anything dealing with Miles Morales. So Miles Morales is the other Spider-Man. There was a while where Marvel had their normal universe and they had what they called the Ultimate Universe. It's just sort of a parallel thing where there was a Spider-Man, there was a Fantastic Four, there was an X-Men, but they were different versions of it. In that Ultimate Universe, who ended up being Spider-Man, the universes ended up collapsing, so now we have 2 Spider-Mans, long story short. And he was in the Edge of the Spider-Verse animated series, animated movie.
Okay.
And they think there's going to be a lot that's done with him. So his first appearance has spiked a lot recently. So anything dealing with him is probably a good investment. But it's tough. The comics are tough because it's so driven by. Let's look at the other side. Sports cards, right? I assume the value of a card is heavily based upon how good the player is that's being represented by the card, right?
To an extent, that's not always everything, but that's key. Yeah.
Right. And you can kind of read the writing on the wall there, right? You can follow someone's career and look at their stats, look at the numbers and see like, oh, they're getting better. They're doing better. I think they're going to get really good. So I'm going to invest in their card now. Comics, it's a little bit different. You can't look at the history like that necessarily because it's so driven by movies and TV and things like that. You never know what character Marvel's going to drop in next. You just don't know.
Right. And that's a lot of the speculation is who's going to be on TV next.
Right. And you can't follow their career. They have characters that we've known about for years and years and years. They've always been there. But tomorrow, Marvel may announce like, oh, guess what? We're bringing in some character that the masses have never heard about, but comic people know. And all of a sudden their book. So for example, Falcon Winter Soldier, right? When they brought in U.S. Agent, they brought in John Walker. He's been around for a long time. No one cared about John Walker. No one cared about John Walker. His first appearance was like $5. Him becoming U.S. Agent was not even that. And then as soon as he got announced as being in a show, it shoots up. You can't know. You can't know what they're going to do.
Weren't you one that teased in that auction? Didn't you tease that Captain America or that U.S. Agent?
Oh, yeah. I still got that. That John Walker becomes U.S. Agent. I still haven't decided.
And I mean, actually, like I said, I've been picking up a couple Raw books, and I like Captain America title. I had picked up this one.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I picked up this one.
Okay. Yep.
So hopefully they're going to do something with Joaquin Torres as Falcon or something. You never know, but again, those are just kind of like spec. I don't really spec that much in comics, but I would relate it to, specking on a young player becoming like the next star, getting a lot of notoriety, or even the way that we try to predict who was going to win the championship in cards that has a lot to do with your values or MVP. Who's going to win the league MVP? because lots of guys play great, but which one of those guys playing great is going to win the MVP? Which one of those guys is going to win an NBA championship this year, or a World Series, or a Super Bowl? I speak basketball because right now that's kind of what drives the market. But in any sport, whoever's going to be your MVPs and your guys chasing for an NBA title is going to drive the market. So more so on them, even more so than performance, because you have a lot of all-stars and a lot of really high performers that are on bad teams, so they don't necessarily get their prices driven like guys that are going to be playing into the postseason when everybody else is going home.
Yeah,
but
it's like you can guess, but you can't know.
Yeah. PSA Slab, we'll be talking some sports cards here shortly. Hang tight, brother. Let's see. With vintage sports cards, older cards with grades of 5s and 6s are respectable. Do comic books work the same way? What years does a leniency start? Now, real quick, I'll touch on this because I was looking at I think it's a Silver Surfer 3, graded in a 6.0, and that card has got some value to it. So like $1,000 comic book, even graded in a 6, and that's probably a good deal. Yeah, probably $1,000 on a good day for a buyer. And that's graded in a 6. So yeah, there's vintage, and that's a key book.
Yeah, absolutely. That leniency is there. There's a saying, low grade is better than no grade, right? Especially for those older, more expensive, hard to get books. Having anything is better than nothing, and they still have significant value.
Yeah, and have them encapsulated and protected, especially when they're that old. It stops from the natural deterioration that you really can't avoid.
Exactly.
And it's authentic. I'm pretty sure there's not a whole lot of like really convincible fakes. Now I could be wrong of really old comic books. People may reprint them, but to actually make it look dated.
Yeah, that's not really a thing.
Is not really a thing, but it is like in sports cards. The Michael Jordan 86 Fleer is actually one of the most reproduced cards out there. And there's multiple different counterfeits. And they look really good.
It's probably a little harder to do that with a comic. But to give you some perspective, my most valuable comic is also my lowest graded comic.
Okay.
So it depends what it is.
Yeah, I was showing the Spider-Mans earlier. I have that 300 and a 9.4, and it's worth more than my 361 and a 9.8 just because it's a more desirable book. Because so I guess it's all driven by the market and what people are desiring at any given time. And I'm sure there's run-ups and pullbacks, just like with cards, and something's hot and then it's slow. But in the comic books, do you notice that every time something might have a rise or a run-up and then a small pullback, does it always establish a bit of a higher floor?
Yeah. It's usually overall an upward trend. You'll have spikes and valleys and all of that. But for the most,
there you go. Now it's hating on Captain America. It's not even worth it. Man, Roboto is just giving Marvel.
E-Man Tony's got another pretty good question.
Yeah, let me see.
Is it worth investing in store variants? It depends. It depends on the book, right? So when a new book comes out, it will have its normal A cover that goes on the shelves. Sometimes it will have some variants that also go on shelves. Sometimes it'll have ratio variants. So like a 1 in 10 variant or a 1 in 25 variant, which means if the store for every 10 issues the store buys, they can buy a 1 in 10 variant at cover price from the distributor. But then there's retailer exclusives where a certain company has artwork made for a cover of their own.
Okay.
And a lot of those for the right book can spike. So we were talking a little bit before, but Something is Killing the Children has a really big variant market. And its retailer exclusive variants it's what's really, really worth the money, because you had to go to that particular store or place an order at only that one place had that cover.
Yeah, I've noticed Oh, I wasn't going to say with the variant. Like I said, I might lose my train of thought because I was really into what you were saying. Oh, one thing that I was getting confused about sometimes when I would see auctions, being someone completely new. And guys, we're going to talk about YouTube comic book auctions before we wrap this up, because we're going to talk about platforms you can buy on, because that's always big in the card market. But like when I would hear someone say this is the 1 in 10 or this is the 1 in 25 or the 1 in 100. I was thinking that was me as a card collector was thinking that was a print run. Okay, there was only 10 of these made. This is 1 out of 10, or this is 1 out of 25 printed. After I did talk with someone from my LCS local comic shop guys, I'm not talking about the local card shop, and they explained that to me as in it's how many actually books they order from, I guess, the distributor,
right?
And the more books they order, the more variants they can acquire into their store. So if they buy 10 newsstand base covers, they would then get a copy of the variant, or do they get multiple copies of that variant, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a ratio. So a 1 in 10 means that for every 10 they order, they get one of those ratios.
Okay.
So if they order 50 of some, they'll get 5 of that ratio variant cover.
Gotcha.
Or 1 at 25, 1 at 100.
And then it will also kick
bigger
in
ones.
to where, so if there was a 1 in 10 and a 1 in 25, they would get 5 of the 1 in 10s and 2 of the 1 in 25s. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're near a small LCS, it might be really tough for you to get those because they may not be getting in the bulk to where they have enough variants to meet the demand for the people in their area.
Yeah, it's not just strictly about the numbers. Like obviously a 1 in 100 is more rare than a 1 in 10 because there's less of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also generally also just harder to find someplace to get them because not every store buys 100 issues of something.
Right. Yeah, I know mine's really small. Near me, they're mostly gaming. It's actually called Born to Game, but they have comic books and they order newsstand. Like they just had the Joker. I think it was a Joker comic book that came in, or they had Bane's daughter or something in it. And apparently there was a variant of that everybody was chasing with her pulling a mask over her face. I might have the wrong title of the book, but I know the first appearance of Bane's daughter. And there was guys in there talking about a variant. I had no idea what they were talking about because I was new. And the one guy was like, I got all the variants. And I was like, that's cool. I'm new. I'm not sure what you're talking about. But then I come to find out, I saw that book posted on like Instagram, and apparently it was a popular spec book, or not a spec book anymore, or a book that I guess is going to be popular.
And they'll usually save like the more attractive covers for those variants, which, you know, aside it from being more rare in the numbers game, it's visually more appealing, so more people want it.
Yeah, vintage graded Star Wars action figures. I haven't done much with action figures, but collectibles in general are taking off. Whether it's money in the market, you know, people pulling money out of other things to get into other assets.
Everyone,
you know,
yeah, COVID.
Nostalgia is huge. You know, you got guys my age that can now afford to buy things that couldn't afford that we wanted when we were younger.
I think those are the two big things in comics and all collectors market. It's people sitting around at home because of quarantine, poking around on the internet, and then finding stuff that they were into when they were younger, and now they have the money to go rebuy their childhood. That's what's really doing it.
All right, one more comment, and we're going to wrap it up with a couple more questions from myself, for Patrick, for Titan. Thoughts on Berserk, which I've heard of and I don't know anything about, with Keanu Reeves. Is Keanu Reeves going to play this character, or is he this character? Or?
Yeah, so Berserker is a new. There's only been one issue out, and it's written by Matt Kent, who is a seasoned comic artist, comic writer. And he does art too, but not in this. And Keanu Reeves. This book, this character, this story was kind of Keanu Reeves' brainchild, and he wanted to have a comic book written about it. So he hooked up with Matt Kent and wrote this book, and he wants it to be a big franchise. He wants to be a movie where he plays it. The main character in the book looks like Keanu Reeves, so it's all set up and ready to go. So worth investing. I think it's worth taking a shot. It's almost guaranteed to turn into something, but at the same time, things like that, everyone thinks that it's going to turn into something.
Right.
They printed a lot of them. So there's a lot out there. So one of my main stores here locally is also one of those small stores. But even those small stores, when they see a book that they think is going to be big, they will order those big numbers to get those ratios. And even the small store ordered a bunch just to get those big ratios because they knew they could sell them and be okay. So Berserker, is it going to do something? Yeah, probably. I don't know if I'd go super heavy into it, but I think it's worth taking a shot at least a little bit.
All right. We're going to go a little bit over the hour because I do have a question. We have lots of people in the cards right now worried about, are we in our second junk wax era? Is there too much mass production starting to pick up again to meet the demand and things like that? And what happens when the demand goes away and we have all this overproduced supply? Or you see, like I remember in the early 90s when they were restarting books with one-of-ones and, you know, like Jim Lee X-Men #1 with all the different covers and the McFarlane Spider-Man #1 where they were restarting the series as a #1 collector's issue, you know, as a selling point and different covers and things like that. X-Force, you know, Ending New Mutants, which was the storyline, but still X-Force, massively produced. And just anything that they could do, whether it was to throw a hologram or an embossment or something on the cover of a comic book to give it a selling point or a collectability and even label it collector's issue. Like that.
It was a weird time.
I remember all that, even though I've been out of the comic books for a while, like that, I felt like I was just standing in my old LCS, you know, 30 years ago. But, is that, do you see like that happening with print runs and stuff in comics now? Because there's definitely pumped up print runs, you know, in cards.
And that's always the fear, right? But the hope is that they've both in cards and comics that they learn from their mistakes. While we are seeing increased print runs, I don't think we're seeing over print runs, right? So the problem with comics in the Dark Ages with Spawn #1 and Spider-Man #1 is like they printed literally 1 million of those.
Right, I don't mean to cut you off, but guys, I learned something tonight. The Dark Ages, that's what we call the junk wax era. So if you hear somebody refer to the Dark Ages, that's what they're talking about in comics.
Yeah, we all go by ages: Silver Age, Copper Age, and so on. And Dark Age is what we call that 90s, where
that's funny.
Mass overproduction. So the hope is they don't do that, and it doesn't look like they are. I think they've learned that bit of exclusivity helps the market, if anything, because it causes more demand. You know, that FOMO is a powerful thing. FOMO is a powerful thing. So I'm hoping not. I do think that we are at, I'm not going to say a bubble, but we're getting to a point where I'd say like a crest. And eventually, like it can't keep going up the way that it is. It's completely unsustainable. You know, eventually everyone's going to have what they're looking for. And then people who are buying to resell things are going to be left holding the bag because they bought all this stock to resell it. And all of a sudden people don't need it anymore because they have it now. So that's going to drive prices down. But I don't think it's going to be a crash like we saw in the 90s for both cards and comics.
This is a weird comment, and I don't know why this comment is here, but Absitz Bins and I don't know. Show the full design of the t-shirt we're wearing. Standing in full screen. I don't know what that's all about. I don't have a design. Mine just says one word on it. And yours is Transformers, Optimus Prime, Megatron.
Yep, that's it.
There you go. All right. So I don't want to take up your whole night, and these guys are itching to get some Q&A on some cards. So let's talk about real quick places to buy some cards or comics, some different platforms. We know eBay's out there.
Sure.
But go ahead and tell us some places if we're looking to get into some comics that are places that you like to buy.
So eBay is kind of the last resort usually. Don't want to deal with them if you don't have to. As you mentioned, there's a pretty big comic community on YouTube and Instagram where we'll do sort of live auctions where you put your bids in the chat and it's timed and all this and pretty well regulated, where you can kind of show the book in real time and you can ask questions about it. So there's a number of channels out there. The group that I'm in, we call ourselves the Comic Spine Sliders, and we rotate who hosts.
Okay.
So I've hosted once, and then I can't remember the one that you were on. I think Amber or Creamer and Cash was the one who hosted.
Yeah, I think she is.
But if you hit up my YouTube channel, Titan Comic Pressing LLC, you can probably find out information from there, or just hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. I have information there. Personally, I think the best place for you to buy comics, if you can, is at local shops. They're the ones that will always need support, and I'm sure it's the same for cards as well. Those brick and mortar shops that, for comics, it's where new comics get delivered. And if they go down, the whole industry's in trouble.
Right.
And it's so easy to just buy stuff online. But we need to, even if it costs a bit more to get the stuff that you're looking for, it's an investment in the hobby and the community itself. I think that's important. That's always the go-to place for me if I'm looking for something.
And guys, I can also speak for these auctions. For myself, I've done quite a bit of buying on YouTube auctions lately. There's multiples out there, but you can look at all of them, pick the ones you like. Like you said, Spine Sliders, was that the full name of it?
The Comic Spine Sliders, yeah.
Yep. So, I can vouch for quite a few sellers on there being legit, good deals. Shipping is great. They give you the full rundown of the book before you buy it, answer your questions for you. It's really fair. I don't see anything like it in the card community, and it's a pretty awesome way to buy comic books. I'm going to remove this comment so we can bring your name up here. Titan Comic Pressing, guys. Make sure you check out his channel. Go ahead one more time. Tell everybody where you can be found. If you have Instagram or a Facebook group, run it down one more time. Make sure you guys go over and hit that subscribe for him, man. Growing his channel. The comic book community is awesome. Very, very accepting, especially of us sports card collectors who are getting into comics. And it's just been super fun. Make sure you let everybody know where you're at. You guys go over there and sub up for him. Make sure you liking this. Check out some auctions. You guys will see me in there bidding, and we'll carry on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun. You mentioned the accepting, and that's definitely something that we like to do, and we're seeing it a lot. We're seeing a surge of new collectors coming in from different sorts of collecting markets or just new to collecting in general. And yeah, we love having more people in there. In the pressing business that I run, I'm getting a lot of people that are new to it and having to kind of help them out and walk through and explain things to them. And that's I love doing that. The reason that I made this business was because I love the hobby. I love connecting with people, and it gives me a chance to do that.
I'm definitely going to be contacting you on Instagram about some books if you want to do some business. I'm looking for a presser and a cleaner. I don't have that. I'm new to it, and I'm looking for somebody that can rely on. So
yeah, I got you, man. I got you. Yeah. So
I just showed you a couple books that, and you have. I don't know if hope maybe you still have the couple books that I bought off you. The Alien book.
Yeah.
If it's still
I don't have them right here.
If that's a book that, I would take your opinion on it if you think that's a book that could press and get in a slab. I really don't know. I thought the book looked cool, so I bought it. A lot of times when I'm buying some titles, I don't really know, but
I pressed that one already. It's already pressed for you.
Oh, already pressed. Even better.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff that I sell, sometimes I'll press it before I put it up for sale, just so it's as good as it can be.
If I knew the books, that would be a plus for me. Like if I was buying books at an auction and someone said that it was already pressed and clean, I'm definitely going harder on my bid.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, you can find me on Instagram, every platform. I'm Titan Comic Pressing LLC. I have a Facebook business page where it has a listing of all my services and prices. My YouTube channel is a little bit of education, a little bit of me just kind of going like, this is cool stuff I bought this week. This is cool stuff I found at a convention, or I'll try to do informative stuff now and then. And yeah, just get me up.
I'll drop a couple links to your YouTube channel as well at the end of this, and then maybe I'll run the link in there in my sports card, my next couple videos that I put out.
Yeah, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks again, Titan, for joining us.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime you have any questions or anything.
we'll get back together again sometime because this is fun. I could really talk a whole nother hour with the comics, but I got some people.
Yeah, you got to put your
cards,
audience. I get it.
Monday night. But I learned a lot tonight. Hopefully some of my viewers took some education away from this, whether it steered them away from comics or bringing them closer, either way. But, very knowledgeable, very helpful.
I'll tell you real quick. One of I think it's one of your viewers, Sadie Family Cards, I believe, contacted me on Instagram, and he had mentioned that just in he's a card person, right? And in his dealing with cards and buying lots of cards, sometimes comics are right there and they're included in those sorts of lots, right? So learn up if they're going to be there anyway, and you're looking to make money and invest on them. Learn about at least a little bit. So you're buying some cards and you see right next to it are some comics and you have knowledge on it. Like, I can make some money off that too. Just if you have that little bit of knowledge.
Yeah, man. Knowing, like, researching and knowing that's key when it comes to making your purchases on what you want. And I preach that for my sports cards, but I don't
always have to battle
on my sports cards channel because I don't know enough to talk about it, and to where people, to where if I influence one person to buy a book, I would feel bad just because I'm like, man, I don't take my word for it. I'm buying this because I think it's neat.
Yeah, right. Well, and you know what? I'm always a collector first. I'm an investor way down the line. Yeah. For me, it's like, buy what you like. Because if you buy what you like, then you're always going to end up ahead. Yeah,
you'll be happy in the end, regardless of what you have.
For sure.
Yeah. That's why I buy crazy stuff like Pink Floyd stickers.
Yeah. You're going to be happy with it, whether you decide to sell it or not.
Yeah, G.I. Joe. I was a G.I. Joe person growing up. My brother was Masters of the Universe. I was G.I. Joe.
That's X Last Level Comics. That's my buddy Matt. He's one of the sellers that was on the auction you watched.
Yes, I received, I believe, a flash lot from him. Came in the mail, I think yesterday, the day before.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, and it was okay. Comic book sellers on these auctions, guys. You've never seen shipping and packaging like this. Like,
we're serious.
It's like, what are those nesting boxes called? Like Russian nesting boxes.
They're nesting dolls. Yeah.
It's like one thing and one thing. And if you sell cards and you buy bubble wrap for your cards, you won't have to buy bubble wrap for the next couple months. You can just cut up the bubble wrap and ship your cards out in it.
Yeah, we've all received comics shipped in a really crappy way and they've been ruined. So we're really we're not going to be that person, right? We're going to make sure it gets to you safe.
Business as usual. Long time viewer, first time caller. Oh, that was so fun and informative. Thanks, man. That's what I hope. I always try to be a little bit informative and just talk, like, very casual, like not a professional interviewer. This has been fun, like I said. Again, thanks for coming on. Guys, make sure you do sub up. All right, I'm going to drop links. Get over there. Sub up to my man Titan. We'll do this again, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks again.
I'm start fielding some questions for some cards, man. You have a good night.
You too. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone.
All right, man. Thanks.
Later.
All right, guys. Now that the green screen is blazing up on me, now you guys can see my superpowers kicking in, but let's go. Let's go with some cards, guys. I've made some sales this week. I might do a sales video, which I haven't done in a while. But today I woke up and a bunch of my modern basketball has sold. Buy it nows that have been sitting for a while, sold. So now, guys, is the modern basketball market starting to heat up? I don't know. What do you guys think? Let's get some questions, get some comments. Let's talk about some cards. Are you guys liking in baseball? Are you guys starting to buy your NFL stuff? Well, if we're not going to have any comments, I might be able to call it an early night, guys. Is that what's going on here? You guys came to see Titan, and then Titan leaves and the comments stop. Trigger Finger is still in the house. Jake DeGrom and Corbin Burns cards have been solid lift recently. Starting pitchers. Yeah, starting pitchers started getting a little bit hot. Last year. You finally saw values on Kershaw go up and things like that. DeGrom is really good. I'm not really familiar with Corbin Burns. DeGrom's been good for a long time, though, so I'm not sure, what kind of hump he needs to get over. Let's see. Dan says he's buying LaVisca Chenault. I'm gonna think that's the wide receiver on the Jags. Some people are putting stock into the Jags receivers based on the Trevor Lawrence coming there, so we will see. We'll see how that works out. I mean, he could put up numbers and be good. Is DJ Chark still there? Because he's really good also. Is Lawrence going to have growing pains? That's going to be the thing. Where do you see Jacksonville? And do you see them in the playoff picture? Has a lot to do with it. So we'll see. With position players, it's always tough because there always has to be a little bit more than production from those guys. Am I buying Tatis Jr.? I'm not. I sold all my Tatis Jr. cards prior to the season just because I thought that was kind of the peak on him. He's a great player. His cards may continue to go up. But I'm not buying any baseball right now. I've actually moved off a lot of my baseball. I'm freeing up some assets and moving some money into some other things. What's my selling window for football? Is it earlier than last year? Well, okay, to be honest, I just flipped a Kyler Murray rookie card because I bought it for $200 in February and I got $350 for it on a buy it now. So to make $150 profit, a little less after fees, but to flip that this early, I went ahead and sold that one, and I still have another one, but it was a select concourse, and I kept my select premier level. So for the right price right now, you can move on your football if you got in February before we saw a certain, because we've seen an initial spike already. Now, how long this spike continues before it levels off and spikes again? You could use this first window as a selling opportunity, rebuy if it stabilizes, and then sell again on a secondary spike. But I've sold a Kyler Murray card already. What have I been buying this week, Michael? I really haven't bought anything this week, to be honest. Again, I've done a lot of selling. My modern basketball is moving. There's a couple modern basketball players that I like, but it may be tough on price point now after Michael Porter Jr. had a big game last night, and I had been picking up a couple of his cards. It's funny because I see one right here. You're going to see my green screen act up, but, I had been picking up some Michael Porter Jr. stuff, and he's starting to, really blow up, filling the void there in Denver. I sold 2 Jokic cards, just got good profit on them in comparison to what I had invested in them. So even though they still have potential to go up, I got out of them now because I'm making money off of them now. DP's the overall market going down. Goats cheap right now. Yeah, goats are cheap right now. But they're cheap and you can get in on them now, but you're going to be looking at tying up your assets for probably a little bit lengthy period of time before you see another rise in them. So before you invest in, some of the older guys, make sure that it's money that you can have tied up, because I don't see, right now, I think an 86 Fleer PSA 9 of Akeem Olajuwon is a really good buy. Even like somebody like Isaiah Thomas is insanely undervalued. But if you buy those cards now, when's going to be your selling opportunity, and how much are you looking to make on them? If you buy an Akeem for $1,000, what's your selling point? Do you want to sell out of it if it gets back up to 1,500, or do you want to sell out of it if it goes over 2,000? Because that's going to depend, and that's going to dictate how long you're going to have to sit on that investment and have your money tied into it. Oh, Sean, this is a little tough. Okay, Steve, any tips on not getting emotionally attached to cards? I have a problem liking stuff too much and then not selling. I've had that problem mainly with the oddball cards, like the rock and roll stickers and stuff, where they're taking off in value, and I bought them for like $50 to $75 graded, and they're reaching over, $2,000 and stuff on eBay. And I'm like, man, I bought this for $75 and one just sold for $2,000. Should I sell mine? So, yeah, I know at what point do you emotionally not get attached. I basically tell myself I can't hold everything. And that's why I've been selling. I sold a Kawhi Prism this week. I sold a LeBron 2003 Fleer rookie PSA 9 this week. I sold 2 Jokic rookies this week. And I'm getting pretty good money for them in comparison to what I bought them for. They could still go up in value, but I can't hold everything. It's like, and I don't need the money right now, but my boxes are full. I just got to move on, pick up some new things. Scott, I don't know what Doomsday Clock is, man. I asked, I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm just getting into the comics and things like that, and I just talked to Titan about it, but I don't know a whole lot of what Doomsday Clock is. Thoughts on Elgin Baylor cards? I don't sit around and really think about the Elgin Baylor stuff. Great player. Where does he rank in the top 20 of all time? He's probably in there somewhere. He passed away. That always brings attention to cards, even though it's, a negative attention, but it usually boosts their values. But these players got to have something to spike their values. And if they're not playing or not even alive, period, if they're not someone like Babe Ruth or something like that, that's just absolutely legendary across all, facets, then you got to ask yourself, will an Elgin Baylor card increase much in value, for what you can buy it for now? And I don't know the prices because, like I said, I don't check the market on him. But if you were to buy it now, what do you see the card being in 5 years if you want to hold that long even? Should you send some 2020 NFL rookies into PSA when they open back up? So you're talking about Herbert and Tua, and by the time they open back up for bulk, these guys might be playing. So then at that time is probably when you're going to want to ask yourself that, because bulk will not be open in July. Like they're talking about reopening July, but it will be higher end submissions and stuff first. And yeah, my green screen is all messed up, guys. I'm working on the green screen. I'm working on the effects. So it'll be better next week. I got home from work and I threw this green screen up with a new light. So, not a professional. I try to look a little bit better and probably made it look worse. Are we going to see huge profits in the next 12 months like we did in the previous 12 months? Maybe not quite as big and maybe not as quite as broad, across the entire spectrum of players. Also, what sport and it all depends on your price point when you got in. That's what determines your profit, is how much did you pay for said card as opposed to how much you can sell it for. So your profit is going to be determined by your price point and your final sale. Someone might have the same card as you and sell it on the exact same day as you for the exact same price. But if they bought that card 3 months prior to you buying it, they may be making more money off of it. If you had to pick one as a better long-term investment, Magic or Bird, it's tough because Magic has seen bigger spikes in his card than Bird has, which means Bird could be a little bit undervalued. However, Magic is in the media way more. He still is seen on TV a lot more. And Bird is kind of, quiet, just kind of out of the picture, just doing his own thing, whatever he's doing. So with Magic still having some attention on him, being on ESPN or being on some of the shows that he's on, talking about modern day players and stuff, you see it with Charles Barkley and Shaq. They still get lots of notoriety because they're still on television. Long term, these guys go hand in hand. They came in the league at the same time, college against each other, competed against each other. If you're doing a top 10 basketball player of all time, they're probably both sitting right there around 5 and 6 or 6 and 7, 7 and 8, right back to back with each other. And it'll always be debatable who was better. So Bird, you can get in a little bit cheaper, but I believe Magic just has a little bit more potential because he's currently you know, getting more TV time. I'm going to have $500,000 in SFX next week. When do t-shirts with my nude logo go on sale? I haven't thought about doing any kind of marketing or selling anything like that. It's like one step at a time. Look how long it took me to get a logo. And if I ever did a t-shirt, it would definitely not have my face on it. It might just have the FS on it. Like, I'm thinking about getting myself a hat made that just has a FS on it, a black hat with green lettering, and I might wear that. I might do some stickers to just send to people for free. You just be like, hey, here's some stickers, stick it on your card box or something. But I'm not going to like market myself with the. Yeah, I look better. Let's see if I zoomed out. I looked better when I was zoomed out than it was when I was zoomed in. But brutal honesty is always appreciated. But I'll get it right, guys. It's just a work in progress, man. Just trial. You can say you were here for my first trial night. Mike, what's going on? Mike, one of the first guys that I met when I got back in the cards, helped me with the Facebook page, encouraged me to start YouTube, Mike's Card Museum. Check out his channel also. He has a channel, very relaxed, does card reveals, PSA reveals, and things like that. Got back a 10 Rogers. Are you getting it back tomorrow? Sell or hold? You're invested $50. I mean, Mike, if you want to sell, I don't know what the going market is on the Rogers at the moment. That card was super hot during the season, so I'm not really sure how much it fell off. But if he comes out hot again this year, you're probably going to want to have it. I really don't see anything causing decreases in his value unless the Packers absolutely tank this year. But could you imagine him also being traded to another team, to finish out his career like Brady did? You would see another spike. So if you're happy with your profit, like I always say, take the profit if that's what makes you happy. And don't look back with regret. Don't say, oh, man, I should have held. Just take it if you're happy and say, oh, I'm happy. I don't even care what it goes for, 6 months from now. Especially if you need those assets, to maybe buy something else that you want. But if you can afford to sit on it and you like the card, because I know you like your quarterbacks, then, do what makes you feel. Do what feels right to you. I just don't think it could hurt to hold it or sell it. I think you could win either way. The potential of 2012 Prism football cards, I'm going to guess, because it's the first year of Prism, those really spiked already kind of with basketball. Not as much because football isn't as valuable as basketball, across the broad spectrum. But they did see an increase in price. Trigger Ferret hit me with one of these. Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, trade Lance, Mac Jones, draft one, trade one, avoid one, trade up to get one, and you don't even have on your draft board no matter what. I honestly, I haven't followed these guys enough in college or all the hype. I mean, we're seeing highlight reels right now. So we're seeing the best of what these guys have done. If I'm drafting one, I'm just going to go with draft one. I'm probably drafting Justin Fields because probably where I can get him is probably the best value. Whichever one goes to the Jets is doomed. So we may never see how good that player could, or how good that quarterback could actually be. But a lot of them are doomed depending on the teams that they go to. But I think that whichever one goes to the Niners is the one I would like to have. I believe a lot of these guys are going to be victim of circumstance. Is there a play with XRCs? XRCs like the select XRCs in football, or some of the old ones, like old rookie cards, tops traded, and things like that. Not sure with the XRCs. Do you think you could hold retail wax boxes from this year's select for football and basketball because it's the first year at retail? I mean, my opinion on sealed wax always boils down to, it's going to be driven by the draft class, or it's going to be driven by the potential of what you can pull out of those boxes. So, if the football and basketball classes from these products end up flopping and not being a very big draft class, maybe one or two guys become collectible, is that enough to go back and pay big money for sealed wax, chasing one or two players? In my opinion, it's not. You'd be better off just hunting the singles down. But if an entire draft class where you have maybe 6 or 7 highly collectible, valuable guys, then again, that might be worth holding, because then people might buy at a high price to chase, because they're more likely to get their value out of a box. But really, in most chances, you never get your value out of a wax box unless you really, really hit the lottery on one. How far does the Fields epilepsy disclosure hurt his draft stock? Still first round. Yeah, I would say first round. I had this discussion with Sports Cards Anonymous on his live stream, because I'm epileptic myself. But, knock on wood, I haven't had a seizure in like 20 years. But people would never know unless I told them. So I don't really think, unless they think it's dangerous for him taking shots to the head and all that. But that happens with everybody. You see concussions left and right in the NFL, and people having to retire after concussion protocol and things like that. So I don't think it'll affect his play. I don't think it'll affect how teams look at him, because concussion, by NFL rule, concussions affect everybody the same way. You get too many of them, you can't play anymore, regardless if you have a chronic illness or something. Or a sickness. Yeah, it's hard to get an eBay buy it now, because, and I'll tell you a story real quick. I sold a card today. eBay buy it now prices are super high, way above what auctions are ending at. The problem is it's tough to find an auction. Everybody's scared to sell in an auction. But I listed a Jokic Prism rookie, and I'm not going to disclose the price that I put on it at buy it now. But I priced it slightly above auction, but significantly lower than the rest of the buy it nows, because I realized that those buy it nows are just way too high. You're looking at Jokic buy it nows in a PSA 9 over $600, and auctions are ending at about $450 to $460, and the buy it nows are up to $600. So I placed my buy it now slightly above auction and quite a bit below buy it now price. I actually had another eBay member, seller or something, message me and say, why are you listing your card so low? Why are you undercutting the rest of the market? And my thing was, well, first of all, it's not his business how to sell my card, but I'm not undercutting. Other people are just overpricing and their cards aren't selling. I price higher than what auctions are ending at, and auctions right now is what's setting the market. Auctions are setting the market, not the buy it nows. The buy it nows are sitting stagnant. So, and the reason they're sitting stagnant is because they're overpriced. And someone wanted to ask me why I was pricing mine, and I was getting like 3x on the card. So I was fine selling it what I was selling it at, because I'm getting a 3x. Maybe they are pricing their cards so high because they came in late and they're trying to at least get, maybe they came in at $500 and they're hoping to sell for $600 and make $100. I came in on that card when it was like $150. So, I'm getting over a 3x on my card. So I'm happy. Yeah, they're just looking for an impulse buy or something like that, and they'll sit on that card for a while. And if he wins MVP, they might get what they're asking. But if he doesn't win MVP and the Nuggets are eliminated, they're going to wish that they sold. They're going to wish that they sold lower and got out, because you're going to be able to rebuy that card in the offseason a little bit cheaper and flip it again later. It's a base prism. For some reason, PSA economy, $20 a card doesn't seem bad. No, that's not a bad price at all, but when are they going to be able to start taking those submissions? Bill asked about Big Ben. I don't know the price on Big Ben Chromes. Big Ben was a hard sell last year for some reason. I had some nice Ben Roethlisberger PSA 10 rookies. And I was trying to move them before Pittsburgh was eliminated. Like Pittsburgh was super hot. They were winning. And I was like, okay, it's time for me to move off of my Ben cards. If I want some later, I'll get some back later. I was able to sell off my Drew Brees cards on that notion, but I couldn't move, and my Aaron Rodgers, but I couldn't move my Roethlisbergers. They just never seemed to get a premium last year, even though the Steelers at one time looked like a lock in the AFC to at least, to be deep into the playoffs. And that's when I was trying to sell them, when they were playing at their peak. And still, I was not making a whole lot more than what I bought them for. A little bit of profit, but not. It was surprising to me at how low that they were still selling at. Flip side, you get insultingly low best offers all the time on eBay too. Yeah, so do I. Some of my buy it nows, but you can option that and just put your best offer in at set your best offer limit, and then it'll automatically decline best offers below what you like. Because if you don't, people will super lowball you. They'll try to. I get that sometimes too. I'll forget to put that in my listing, and I'm like, dang, I can't believe I didn't put a minimum offer. Now I'm getting these super lowball offers that are ridiculous. But, look at what the auctions are selling at, because people are going to continue to wait for auctions if auctions continuously go cheaper than buy it nows, unless all of a sudden there's a surge on a player and people got to have it. People are being a little bit more patient right now than last year. E-Man says, is Jamal Murray a sell now or a hold till next year? Well, if you're selling now, you're probably selling at a low. But if you're still making money, then that's up to you. I mean, I probably wouldn't sell him if it's going to be a loss for me, considering you don't need the money. But if you can make some money off of him and there's something else you want to invest in, then do that. But if there's nothing else you want to buy and you want to hold your Murrays, you can do that. But right now, I believe is probably the worst time to sell Murray cards. If you wanted to sell off some of your Murrays and roll them into some Michael Porter Jr.'s, that could be a decent play, at least temporarily, and then sell off your Michael Porter Jr.'s and re-roll them into Jamal Murray. It all depends on how much you like to buy the same card over and over and resell it and then rebuy it and resell it with the waves of the market. What's up, Ziggy? Ziggy, I was going to message you about the Chantilly show. The Chantilly show is the same weekend as the Dallas show because the Chantilly show changed their dates, and I'm booked to go to the Dallas show. So I won't be able to be in Chantilly May 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd. I'll be in Dallas, going to my first Dallas card show. I already have my room and plane tickets and everything. So it's like when they pushed that Chantilly date, I didn't realize it lined up with the Dallas show. Can the Nuggets keep MPJ, Murray, and Jokic long term? They would probably move one of them. I originally thought MPJ would be the guy that they would want to move. It's going to all depend on Murray's health and how he comes back and plays. It's a knee, so he should be okay. It's not like it's an Achilles. MPJ's playing, but he put up over 30 last night. He had a pretty monstrous game last night. We've seen him do it in the past. He plays a different position, so it's going to all depend on where they feel like who is still the best fit for their team. I look at Jokic being there as a lifer probably. I originally used to think that if they were going to move on, it would be MPJ because he wasn't getting enough playing time. He was kind of rotating in, but he's the kind of guy that could go to another team and be a superstar, if he was like their main guy. So, but I don't know now with the Murray injury kind of clouds everything up. No, I'm not selling merchandise. Trigger's all about no, I didn't get a logo. I just got a logo because someone on the Facebook group designs logos, and they asked me if I wanted a logo, and I was like, okay, well, I'll give them some business. I paid them to do a couple logos for me, give them some business. I got a logo for my channel, but it wasn't like I'm marketing or branding myself or anything. It was, I helped somebody who was looking for a little bit of work, create a logo, and I was like, what the hell? I'll buy a logo, at least to cover up the StreamYard duck that used to be up there. Peyton Pritchard is a guy that I like under the radar. Again, I haven't bought any. I haven't looked at any Prism product. It'll be somebody that I just maybe speculate on well into the off season. I'm not going to chase the Celtics players, as the Celtics chase a playoff spot. Because if they get in, people will be like, oh, what if Pritchard has a big night on the big, on the big screen, and they'll buy like that. But he's a guy that I think has some sneaky value going forward, but a guy that I will buy in the off season and put a couple of them away. It's tough because do you want to send your Peyton Pritchard cards in to get graded? I mean, is there value in that at grading fees and wait times? So you got to ask yourself on some of these lower rookies and players like that, are they worth buying just to have raw? Because, the restrictions on grading right now kind of hurt, some of the players that you might actually want to buy, because throwing that grading fee on top of them a lot of times now is costing you more money than the card itself. And Trigger Finger says they think they should move Murray. I mean, Jamal Murray, he really blew up in the playoffs last year. That's what kind of put him on the map. I mean, up until then, he was more of a mediocre young player. I missed out on a huge opportunity on Jamal Murray just because I didn't know enough about him, hadn't seen him play enough, and it was a big lot of PSA 10 Prism base rookies for I think it was like 8 of them. And I was negotiating back and forth with a guy, back and forth. And when it was all said and done, he wanted, if I was going to buy the entire lot, he wanted $60 per. And I know that sounds crazy now, but at the time, for the market really flew, I was like $60 for a PSA 10 base Prism with Jamal Murray. I don't know. They're kind of selling for 65 to 70 individually. I can buy this entire lot for $600. It was like 10 of them. Might have been 8 of them. I can't remember. But I can buy this entire lot at $60 a piece. I did not do it. And I missed. I didn't pull the trigger on it, and I missed. It happens. He started killing it in the playoffs. That card shot up like crazy. I missed a big flip. It happens. Instead, I put all my money into Jason Tatum, and Jason Tatum's were even cheaper at the time. So I made the money on Tatum. You got to pick and choose your targets. You can't buy everybody. And really last year, there wasn't necessarily many bad choices the way that the market was. I put money into Pascal Siakam and made a lot of money. I put money into Brandon Ingram and made a lot of money. It was really hard to miss. The only way you could miss last year was basically to not buy before the spikes happened, because you could pretty much move anybody at one point last year. Now, I sold all my Siakams. I sold all except one Tatum. And right now they're hard sells, believe it or not. Even though they're good NBA players, right now those 2 players are tough sells. Would I buy any cards that are not from a major manufacturer? MFG, is that what that is, manufacturer? I was looking at some women's golf or major. What's MFG? I'm missing MFG. Is it manufacturer or a major sport or a major? I'm not sure. Oh, brand was primetime. I'm guessing you're manufacturer. Okay. Some women's golf, but brand was primetime sports promo. Sometimes some sports only come under certain brands. So you got to buy what's made. Like if you look at the old tennis cards, they were made by NetPro. Nobody really knows who NetPro was, but if you bought old NetPro tennis cards back when they were dirt cheap, you were pretty happy a couple months ago when Serena and Federer and Nadal cards were like hitting all-time highs. Even the old net pros of Agassi and Sampras You know, I bought the Agassiz and Sampras. One of my first outside the box videos I got laughed at for was buying old tennis cards. And yeah, I just sold a couple Agassi BGS 9.5s that look like this. This one's not graded. And the green screen really don't do nothing for it because the green screen is green and the card is green. But anyway, I sold one of those for like $200, but again, I was only invested $15 on a BGS 9.5. So you can buy that stuff and move off of it. It just all depends on the player. You know, a lot of times it doesn't matter what any given player is printed on. If that player becomes highly collectible, almost anything with their face on it becomes highly collectible. Jeff Cards, is there anything wrong with My Slabs? It seems like it's better eBay for buying and selling slabs. I haven't used My Slabs, and I think I say that at least once a week. I think I say, and I just haven't went and looked. I guess I need to. So I will check out My Slabs, and I'll be able to give an honest opinion, but I can't give an opinion on something I've never used. I know what I've heard, but unless I've experienced it for myself, you know, I can't give you a full honest opinion on it. So are we talking about Julio being done with the if Triggerfinger says if he stops making fun of Lando, will you take a look at My Slabs? I'll take a look at My Slabs, and you can still make fun of Lando. Man, it's kind of the thing, man. It's become tradition once a week to get that Lando joke in out there. Maybe I'll get a little Lando logo t-shirt. Who knows? Go back up here. All right, guys, my last comment came in at 10:47. There we go, Ziggy. All right, Ziggy's giving you an opinion here. I like My Slabs, but the uploading is a pain in the, I'll say it, ass. It deters from selling. They have great buying for slabs and wax. So there's an opinion from Ziggy. Ziggy's knowledgeable in the hobby, so you know you can take his word for it. But again, I haven't used it yet. Wait, he would buy a no-go on Lando shirt. How do I find the the miscellaneous non-sports cards? Just random eBay search. Yeah, honestly, I just, you know, there's things that I like. I like rock and roll stickers, and I know that Panini Contanti is who made the rock and roll stickers. So I would just put in Panini Contanti, see what pops up. Very rarely do the listings change because that stuff is rare. I'll scroll by the same listings night after night after night after night and never really find anything that I want. But every once in a while, I'll find that diamond in the rough, like the Rolling Stone sticker. Or, you know, and it'll just be sitting there to pluck, or some of like those 7-Eleven discs, things like that. It's just, you know, I doubt that any data tool is going to show you that type of stuff. To me, that's part of the treasure hunt and, you know, Easter egg hunt, whatever you want to call it, is looking up that old stuff and finding a diamond in the rough. What basketball packs am I buying? I'm not buying any basketball packs. First of all, I haven't seen any on the retail market because I haven't looked. I haven't tried the new Target situation out. I don't go out to buy wax. If I'm there and I see it, I might buy a little bit. Most of it I give away on the channel. You guys know that. If I'm in the LCS and they got a decent price on a blaster or a hanger pack, I might buy something, but I haven't been to the LCS. And that's because they got like a little area you can sit down and open and chat. And I'll just do it basically just for the experience, to sit around and talk about the packs and stuff, not even necessarily caring about what I'm going to pull. I had a friend of mine. This is a story, so you may be interested, you may not. But I made a deal with a friend of mine. I bought a card off of him, and he also asked me to submit some cards to him for grading. This is a couple months ago, and he brought in a stack of cards for me to submit. I brought them home. At least I thought that I did. Next day, couldn't find them anywhere. Went back to my office at work, checked the drawers and everything. Couldn't find them anywhere. I'm like, oh my God, I lost this stack of cards. And there were some decent cards in there. Finally, after a week of turning my house upside down, I go to him. I'm like, dude, I lost your cards. This is embarrassing. This is unprofessional. I'm going to have to compensate you for these cards. That's fine. Well, he told me just to keep looking. They would turn up. Something would happen. And these cards were gone. I was like, no, dude, you don't understand. These cards are gone. He was like, well, give it a month or something. You never know. They might turn up. And I'm like, dude, these cards are gone. They're gone. So anyway, the other day I was cleaning up my wax area, my cards area and stuff. And I was about to throw out this Hoops premium blaster box. I was about to throw this thing away. And because I thought it just had a bunch of empty packs and loose singles in it that were garbage. And I picked it up and it was heavy. I was like, man, this thing is heavy. This is not loose singles in there. And I pulled it out, opened it up. And man, it had all his cards in there that I thought I lost like 2 months ago. And like, this is the stuff that I thought I had lost. Now, some of this stuff, he just wants graded to have graded. But this is the stuff that some of the stuff I thought I had lost. Now, these are just 2 Zion draft pick silver prisms. That's not that big. But he likes golf autos. I thought I had lost this Tiger rookie. This Lewis Robert, like high-tech auto rookie card. A Patrick Mahomes Crown Royal rookie card. A Steph Curry Upper Deck rookie. And a Conor McGregor UFC card that's got auto and like some kind of event-worn memorabilia on it. And this is numbered out of 15. I thought I lost all that stuff, man. I was about to like pay him for a bunch of cards that I lost. Crazy. I lost in the whirlwind. Since I like skateboarding, would I ever buy a Marvel deck like Titan had? I was asking him about his skateboards in the background. You know what? If I was to make a background with a couple skateboards in it, I would probably put up a couple of my original decks that I had from 1990. Because they're still in my grandparents' garage. I have a Pal Peralta Rip deck. I have a Vision John Lucero deck. I have a Schmidt Stick Ripsaw deck. I'd probably put up those old. Now they're grinded up a little bit. Yeah, how much for the Curry? I have the Curry, actually. It's funny that you ask, because that's his, but I have this one here in a 9.5, and it's 2 10s and 2 9.5s. That's like as close to a 10 as you can get. First edition. This is actually in my sale box. This is going to hit eBay probably within the next 3 days. Things makes its way. I got 3 boxes here. They make their way down the box as they rotate through. Paul Drown says he bought a Kevin Porter Jr. on Star Stock. Haven't looked at it in months. When I just heard you talk about him, the cards lost value. Is that because they're raw? The Kevin Porter Jr. cards were high because he had hype. Then they went down because he was a bit of a head case. And then he got traded to another team. And then when he got traded to another team, his cards went back up. So if you weren't paying attention to the market, you probably had a chance to move on it, and you weren't paying attention, and you probably would have made money on it. So I work with this guy, and he wanted to get on Star Stock, and he bought one card. I said, buy this select Kevin Porter Jr. card. It's dirt cheap, and if you're not going to buy it, I'm going to buy it. So he bought it. He had an opportunity to sell it, but he wasn't paying attention. But if he followed basketball, he would have known KPJ got traded to Houston and his card saw a spike. Ziggy, Sports Card Daily, just subbed to your channel. Yes, if anyone in my chat is not subbed to Ziggy, I don't know what you're waiting for. Knowledgeable in the hobby, been around for a while, knows what he's talking about. Are Giannis rookies underpriced right now? Man, I don't believe that anybody that's been in the league as long as him and hasn't won a title. Because what's a PSA 10 Prism at now? At least 3,000. Does somebody who has 2 MVPs but nothing else to go, no other hardware to go along with it, warrant a $3,000 price tag? Now, if you're looking at that card and saying, okay, it's $3,000 because he's going to win a championship in the near future, that's pure speculation, and that's probably baked in there a little bit. If he wins a title, will they go up? Yes, they will. Are you taking a risk coming in on something at that price? Big time. So to say it's underpriced, it's hard for me to say any modern day player is underpriced at a price tag like that. Anybody, whether it's Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, anybody from 2012 and on, a lot of guys are really overpriced. Luka Prism's $1,200. That's $1,200. In comparison to other players, is it fairly priced? I don't know. Is the market as a whole overpriced? Is everyone underpriced? That's the big question that everybody's asking right now because everything's not going crazy like it was last year. But again, a Giannis Prism for $3,000. This could be a guy who scores lots of points his entire career and then retires with not a whole lot to show for it besides his MVPs. And then he's just another really good player that played, for 15 years. He's another Patrick Ewing. Steph is undervalued. Just watch some of his auctions, PSA 9, UD First Edition, and for cheap. Yeah, Steph has made me a believer this year, and I've always been a bit of a Steph skeptic. I thought he was a one-trick pony with the shooting and all that, but he's definitely changed the game. You have to shoot 3-pointers to win nowadays. I've earned a lot of respect for Steph, and I think some of his cards are underpriced. Some of them might be slightly overpriced because when you start talking about some of the prices of his higher end base cards, like Topps Chrome, which is a base card, or a Topps, which is a base card, I know they're tough grades. They didn't print a lot in those years, but some of the prices are just crazy. I do believe there's some undervalued ones out there, though, like the different Paninis and the Upper Deck and things like that. In comparison to some of those high end ones, what sets them so far apart from one another? What does the background makes you want to buy cards? I don't even know why I picked this background. I was just playing around with the green screen. Guys, I'm computer illiterate. If you don't know that by watching my videos, because I film all my videos on a phone, and my face always be like white, like a ghost on here and things like that. I don't do a whole lot of like crazy editing and stuff, and that's just because that's not my thing. So I got a green screen to have a little bit of fun. I got tired of everybody staring into the room behind me, and I kept trying out all kinds of different backgrounds. The green screen, I don't really like the staticky fuzziness of it and not being able to show cards as much. So I don't know how long this thing will be around. But I thought I'd just put a card show back there because I've been talking about going to a card show. How do I stay focused on your plan? You change direction all the time. I change direction a lot too. Like my plan is to, move on to what I think is the next big thing, or, hang on to what I feel like needs to be held on to. Like I tend to have an end game, or I try to have an end game for everything that I buy. And if that end game gets there, I sell it. I just don't hold it. And, I don't get greedy. And I don't look back with regret. Like you can look back with regret and say, man, I should have held. That card just, doubled in price again. I should have held. Now you're looking back with regret, and it's going to cause you to hold everything. However, sometimes you might not sell. And the regret that you're looking back with is, man, I should have sold. That card just went down 50%. I should have sold. So, you just can't look back with regret. Either you'll hold everything or you'll sell everything. And you just got to find a happy medium to where you're happy with your end game, your original plan, the time frame in which you wanted to sell something in. And, the profit margin that you have. Just remember, if you're selling something, you'll have the assets to buy something else. So if you sell something and you're like, oh man, I sold that card, there's always another card out there that somebody wants to buy. In yourself, yourself as well. When is the best time to buy an okay LeBron rookie? After the season? Maybe now. LeBron stuff is down now. LeBron has done some polarizing stuff to some people. Some people consider to be polarizing in the media lately. Will that affect his cards? I don't know. I sold a LeBron card today, and I got above auction pricing. I put a buy it now on the card about $75 over average auction sales, and I got to buy it now on it today. So, and I also got a couple of LeBrons that I'm keeping. So I'm selling some, I'm keeping a couple. I'm selling some right now because I don't know if he's hurting his own value. So I'm trying to move off of a couple. I'm still making money off of them, so that's okay with me. The one that I sold today, I sold for $800. I bought it for $480. So I still made enough profit to where I sold it. That card, a month or two ago was like a $1,200 card. So it's showing that the market on him is down. Since then, it's down across the board. LeBron is not exempt from the market being down. He's on board with the market being down. There's very few players that have been exempt from it. So it is a time to buy on a player like LeBron. He has long-term upside. They win another title. He has crazy upside. But right now, he's more in the news for what you don't want him to be in the news for. You want him to be in the news for, winning championships and things like that. Whether you agree or disagree with his take, and his tweets and stuff like that, it's, a lot of the sports media, was talking a lot about it. Have a hard time to sell or find time to sell? You've been looking at LeBron too, but they aren't as low as you thought they would be. I don't know. I mean, even though, he has Twitter posts out there that is getting him some negative attention, but there's also probably a lot of people that don't think it's negative attention. There's probably a lot of people that also think that it's positive attention. I guess there's multiple ways to view everything. And my thoughts are undisclosed, but, I mean, right now he's down. So yes, could he get a little bit lower than where he's at right now? He could. But I believe whether you buy now or you buy 2 weeks from now or you buy 1 month from now, 1 month might be too late, but whether you buy now or you wait a week or 2 weeks, I still think that the prices that he's at now, his end game prices are going to be higher than your current entry level. Even if he continues to go down for a week and you could get him maybe $50 to $100 cheaper, if you come in now, you're still going to profit in the long run, in my opinion. However, if you wait a week or two, they might not go down. Like I said, I just sold one above market today. Is that going to be, will that be a domino effect? Will people start buying? They see one go off eBay, $75 higher than recent auctions. That might start driving them back up. The card I sold is averaging between 700 and 750, and my buy it now went for 800 today. So are we going to establish a new market floor on that card? And modern basketball is starting to move. I can tell you firsthand, I had 4 or 5 cards go off today while I was at work. Unexpectedly, I kept pulling up my eBay notifications. It was like, paid item, please ship now. And I'm like, damn, I wasn't expecting this. I put up 13 listings, and then all of a sudden, I even was chatting with Dustin, Boris, and Brad, and was like, guys, I just had a bunch of NBA modern stuff move. Are you guys seeing this? Are people starting to buy? So, maybe that's a video I'll do, but I made some sales today. see, is there any certain LeBron that I like? The one that I like is the one that I sold, to be honest. And I've already sold mine, so this is not me trying to pump it up there. But I sold because my buy-in price was still low enough for me to make good money off of it. But I like his 2003 Fleer. You know, it's not the tops. It's kind of looked on as the next level down. But Fleer was a respectable brand in basketball. I mean, most iconic set is 86 Fleer. His 2003 Fleer is just a nice looking card. It's obtainable. It's within a decent budget. And a PSA 9. Pop reports aren't super high on it. You know, it's just a nice looking card. When I bought it, that was my whole thought process on it. I was like, man, I like this Fleer card. Fleer is respectable. You know, people are sleeping on it because it's Fleer and not tops. You know, pop reports are low. It looks good. I just liked a lot about the card, and that's what prompted me to buy it. But I just moved off of it because I was in at a low price point. So I can sell LeBron now and still make money. Some people may have to hold their LeBrons because they may have been in on that. Like I said, that card was once like around $1,200. They may have been in at $1,000 or been in at 12. Selling now between $700 and $800 wouldn't make sense for them. Somebody like me who was in at a lower price point makes sense for me to sell because I can take $800, I can pocket half of it, and I can put half of it into something else. So I'm walking away with some money and I'm investing into another card. And the less money you invest in a card, the more potential you have of that card doubling in value. Remember that. If you buy low-end cards and cheaper cards, they're going to double in value quicker than high-end cards. I can't answer Don Shula questions because I'm impartial, because I'm a Dolphins fan. But, you know, coach cards just don't hold a lot of value except for maybe Belichick. You know, if I wanted a nice Don Shula card, I might look for like maybe a 92 Pro Line Auto if he has one of those. And that would be for PC purposes only. You sent a good question. Is there a question on my Instagram right now? Key Joseph asked, what do I have more of, older cards or newer cards? It depends on what your definition of older is. I'm probably kind of split right down the middle. Because I have, you know, I have early 80s Bird Magic cards. I have mid 80s 86 Fleer rookies in basketball. I have Kobe's, which is 90s. You know, is that, to me, 96 feels newer because I'm old. But I do have some other stuff like Zions and stuff, and I don't have many Ja Morant. I didn't really go heavy on Ja Morant. I went more in on Zion. But I would probably say about equal. I have more big cards, value-wise cards than older cards. I probably have more value in older cards, less value in newer cards. But quantity-wise, I might have a little bit more modern than I do vintage. But my vintage cards are worth more money. Like I got a Larry Bird Magic rookie, a Jordan rookie. So, of course, that's going to carry, you know, the value of my portfolio. All right, guys, I'm at 2 hours and 8 minutes. If we do not get some comments coming in by 2 hours and 10 minutes, I'm going to call it a night. Thanks for everybody for joining me. I know we had some comic book talk in the middle, and, you know, maybe that deterred some people from the show, but I wanted it to be a little bit educational, not just me here yapping for 2 hours. You guys probably get tired of that. I don't know when the last time I took a drink was. I tested out the green screen, threw this stuff together last minute after getting off work. But hopefully you guys took something away from the comic book market. We'll be back with the regular live stream where I shoot from the hip with you guys and do some Q&A, carry on, tell a crazy story here and there. Vester dipped in blood, Acuna or Soto? Man, this question is a very popular question. I got asked this. Oh, who asked me this? Somebody directly asked me this in a text message today. I think I still like Soto. I don't know why. It's so hard. I'm not sure if you can go wrong with either guy, but if you had to, I mean, I believe I believe you really can't lose. Like if you only had money to invest in one of these guys, whichever one you pick, I believe you'll be happy with whoever you pick. I know that kind of feels like a cop out answer, but honestly, Acuna's price points are probably higher. You can probably get it on Soto lower, I'm going to guess. Um, the Nationals probably going to struggle, but Soto is just an all-around good baseball player. Both of them, I think, got good futures. I think they're both the future of Major League Baseball. I would choose both of these guys before I chose Tatis, and you guys are probably going to blow me up in the comments for that, but I would choose both of these guys before I chose Tatis. I just would, because I think Tatis is going to have a long career riddled with injuries, nagging injuries, maybe not devastating injuries, but I think he's going to be the kind of player that stays nicked up a lot. It's going to cost him a lot of production. Michael Mall says, so what or who modern sold for me today? I'd probably do a video on it. I haven't put out a flip video in a while, and people used to like those, but I don't always like to brag about my sales. But I was actually able to profit during the dip, so I'm going to do a little bit. I also sold a card and took a loss. So full transparency, I took a loss on a card, and I'm going to put that in the video too, because it's not all gravy. Every once in a while, you take a loss. But I sold 5 or 6 cards, and I profited on 5 and lost on 1. So if I can hit on 5 and miss on 1, I'll take that all the time. But I sold a couple Jokic cards. He's super hot. I sold a Kawhi Prism rookie PSA 9. Took a loss. That's the card I took a loss on. I sold a Luka Select Concourse SGC, the one that I did a video on that the auction got pulled. I relisted it at auction and sold. Did good on that, even though I didn't tag the PSA in it anymore because I'm not doing that anymore. And or put it in the description. I never tagged it in the little selection boxes below. I always went SGC with that, but I actually have to pull up my eBay to double check what all sold. I couldn't keep up with all of it. At work, checking my phone. I sold a Kawhi Prism, a Jokic Prism, the Jokic Don Russ rated rookie that I got in my PSA return video, LeBron 2003 Fleer rookie, a Luka Select Concourse, a Joel Embiid 2014 Prism. That's what went today. Yep, that's what went today. And a baseball card I didn't include. And a Marvel card I didn't include either. Just my basketball. But the Marvel card I doubled my money on, and the baseball card I tripled my money on. It was an Acuna card. So did it okay today. What do I think of 91 Marvel cards? I don't know much about the 91. I had the 91s because I did a PSA reveal on those, and I had collected since I was a kid. I even had pulled them out of the old moldy box that was in the closet. Still had my handwriting on it from when I was young. I can't write very well now. My penmanship isn't very good, but yeah, I even showed it. I wrote Marvel cards on a box when I was a kid. They were not protected or nothing. They were just in that box, and I sent in 9 of them or 8 of them to PSA. I got a bunch of 9s. I got a couple dogs, like a couple 7s, but I just wanted to send them in, and that's what I did. And I sent in a Jokic rated rookie that I bought raw for $45 to hoping that card would protect my order. Whether it came back in a 9 or a 10, it would at least cover my grading fees. And it came back at 10. I moved that card today for 1,200. So that's one of the cards I just sold. Bought raw maybe in January or February. I did a video when I bought it raw for 45 bucks off eBay, and it scored a 10 for me. And I got to buy it now on that card for 1,200 today. So $45, $50 to get it graded. I was 95 invested. Bought and paid for and shipped this morning already. I dropped it off from the post office on my way to work. I don't hesitate when it comes to sending cards out, because I know people want their items. So if somebody buys something off me at 9 a.m. and I got to be into work at 10 a.m., it's going to the post office. All right, guys, we're going on 2:15. Thanks for everybody coming out again. Thanks for hanging in there for the comic book talk. I know you guys come for the cards, you come for the chat, you come to hang out. That's the most fun part. But I wanted to throw in the comic books, get a little education for anybody who might be interested, a little education for myself. It can never hurt. If I want to talk about comic books in the future, I got to know what I'm talking about, because I'm just not going to talk about something for the sake of it. And again, always a blast. Always lose my voice. Right about the time my throat starts getting sore, I know it's about time to and I didn't even do a lot of the talking tonight. Maybe I'll pull on a random guest some night. Ziggy maybe will come on with me some night. And yeah, just let me know. Anybody got a YouTube channel, drop it below. Hold on. What is the most expensive card in my home? I'm going to say a Jordan 9. An 86 Fleer Jordan. It's a BCC G9, but it's about a $10,000 card. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and head out. Going to put out a video either tomorrow or the next day. I'm probably going to roll out a video about what I just talked about. I have 2 really good videos. Okay, I got a video, 3 cards more rare than you thought they were, that I think are under the radar and undervalued, because they're a lot more rare than people think that they are for certain reasons. And I got a video of my recent sales. So we'll have to decide on what I'm going to do, because I don't do videos every day. So you'll see one of these, and then maybe 4 days later or a week later, you'll see the other one. I don't know which one you guys are going to see first. Maybe one of these days I'll put up one of those YouTube votes. I don't even know how to do that, but I'll figure it out, I guess. And I will put Titan's Instagram and Titan's YouTube channel into my comments of this. Give me a couple minutes to do it when I get off here. And Adam wants to see the rare cards. Maybe that's what I'll go with. That's the one I had planned first, because I wasn't planning on doing a sales video until I made all those sales today. And I'm like, damn, modern NBA is starting to move. Maybe I should do a video on this. But I don't know. I just don't like to put them out too close to each other and then have too many videos out and it'd be overkill and things like that. Just to space my videos out. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and go for real this time. Thanks for coming out. Always appreciate it. Thumbs up if you haven't done it. Subscribe if you haven't done it. Pretty sure you guys have all subbed up. You guys are good, faithful followers. And till my next video, guys, I'll see you. Good luck in your investing.